Yard IQ goes IQ 1000, coming back to beat Bryce Delval, an instant reaction to the debuts of Yuki Yosa and Kaito Ono. This is the One Friday Fights 109 recap, coming up next on Fighting with Friends. Welcome back to Fighting with Friends and still the undisputed African fighting podcast champion of the world. One Friday Fights 109 took place on May the 23rd at 2:30 p.m. South African time, and reacting to the card with me is the reigning defending undisputed being champion of the world's course, brother.
Let's go. Yes, but a lot of mouthful there, you say. Getting all that titles out.
Welcome back, bro. Massive fight card that we need to get into, and as always, BG, we start
at the top of the card, bro. Let's
go.
At
the top of the card, we saw Yard IQ go IQ 1000 coming back to beat Bryce Delval. Immediately before the fight started, we were talking about what a big bantamweight Bryce Delval is, and leg reach was a massive factor. But yeah, Yard IQ showing why he was on the 6-fight, now a 7-fight streak.
Yeah.
Sticking to the game plan, getting the job done. So what can you tell us here, BG?
Is that 6 fights? Yeah, yo, the dude's putting it away. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-fight win streak, massive. Yeah. Dude, we called it. We said in the preview that he's very good at game planning against opponents. I don't know why One Championship is giving him a lot of athletes outside of Asia. I mean, if you look at his record in One Championship, he's only fought against European athletes. So it's very interesting. So I think that he's kind of got this number down. I think if he fights against a Thai fighter, he probably loses. I'm being honest, I think Yodaki will get beat by another Thai fighter, but because he's fighting guys that's outside of his region, you can sort of game plan against him quite well. You know, he's got it down to a T. And we saw it in this fight. Look, he did struggle in the first round. Let's get real. He did struggle. Breach was coming at him quite intensely, using that reach. That leg advantage, reach advantage was massive because he was throwing tips that Yodaki had a bit of difficulty, trying to sort of evade. But he hung in there in the first round, and then in the second round, you could kind of see, not even kind of, it's clear that he won that second round because he put up the pace. The numbers was higher output in terms of how he was going forward. He was utilizing good body kicks in defensive positions as well, which I always think is a massive risk. But he was throwing it and it was landing. A lot of his the elbows when they were up in the clinch positions. He even closed Breece's left eye from one of the elbows in the clinch position. Look, there were a couple of sort of eye pokes, near miss eye pokes, and it looked like there were a few, but I didn't like the way Breece was focusing on that too much. I think he just had to fight the fight. You know what I mean? Because there was a moment in the third round where IQ sort of spent all his energy out to get the finish, and he didn't get the finish. And then Breece came back, and I think if Breece was just a little bit more focused in getting the finish for himself, he probably would have made it a bit more of a spectacle at the end of that fight. I just think he was sort of complaining about the eye pokes a bit too much. I thought just fight the fight, bro. Just get in there and fight the fight. Never mind those eye pokes. And I thought that it looked almost like he was trying to get out. Like he wanted a way out of the fight because Yodaki did put it on him rounds 2 and round 3 quite significantly. And I must give props to the judges here, AD, because in the past we will notice that when a fighter gets a knockdown, it's almost like a foregone conclusion that they win the fight. Even though they lose the second and third round, they still kind of win the fight. And in this fight, Yodaki got dropped at the end of that first round with a beautiful jab. And to see him come back and win the fight kind of shows something about the judging in the One Championship. It's like, are they actually starting to change it now? Is there going to be more consideration to the athlete that if you knock me down in the first round, I piece you up round 2 and round 3, like I almost 10-8 kind of rounds, but I don't get the knockdown though. But I piece you up in rounds 2 and round 3. Are you still going to give the fight to me? You know what I mean? Are you scored nothing? And this fight kind of showcases that where Yodaki significantly wants round 2 and 3, and they gave him the fight. And that puts us on a very good streak in terms of predicting some of the fights. I did say Yodaki was going to get the job done for sure, and he did. Look, it was a tough fight. Breece is a hell of an opponent for sure, but now that's 3 losses in a row in the One Championship. What next for him? You know what I mean? But also we have to also give respect to the athletes that he did fight against, as Nongo and the Albo Zombie. Anybody can lose to those two. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, big ups to both athletes. And Yodaki again, going on a massive streak here, bro. Only lost one fight in One Championship.
Yeah. Agreed there, BG. I mean, the two fights that he lost prior to this one, Priesteval, were both split decisions, and like you said, major opponents. So yeah,
Mm.
I don't think his stocks completely plummeted here. I think
No.
people still want to see, because I think he put on a good showing of himself, and
Yes.
of course, John IQ going on to now 7 fights unbeaten. So I mean, what's next for him? 7 fight streak, bro. Is it pay per view time? Is it time for a ranked opponent? What do you want to see for next for him, bro? Because this is
So
bantam with that, and we know that's another stack
yeah,
division.
absolutely, dude. I firstly, big ups to the bonus that he did get. I think he did get a 350K. Oh no, he didn't. He didn't. But there was conversation around the fight that this was supposed to be a contracted fight. Like if he wins the fight, he gets a $100,000 contract. So
Mm,
I don't know if he gets a pay-per-view event just yet because he's not a contract athlete. But I personally feel like he's close. He's got a massive win streak, right? But I would like to see him fight against someone that isn't European or
mm,
isn't Brazilian or fight someone that's in Thailand, considering someone that's also quite highly ranked. Maybe not someone that's in the top five. You know what I mean? But I'm looking for. Oh, you got it on screen right now. The bantamweight rankings is on screen. So I don't think any of those guys. He beat
mm.
Abdullah. He beat Abdullah Dayakaev already, and that man's got a contract.
There you
So
go.
let him run it back. Let him run it back. Give your
I
IQ the
don't.
opportunity.
Mm,
You
I
don't
don't
want?
hate that. I don't hate that. I don't hate that. Yeah, but ladies and gentlemen, if you have any thoughts here on your IQ, drop us a comment, like and subscribe to Fighting with Friends, and shout out to all the people who did comment on our previous video. We really appreciate
Yeah.
it. Let's keep the community growing. But we'll keep moving then, BG, and here we'll go
Mhm.
to some flyweight Muay Thai. We saw
Sure.
Wutikrai defeat AMW. I think by first round TKO. And yeah, but I mean, true to form, the Lithuania fighters in coming out there like a house on fire, but a really fast start. But yeah, Wutikrai staying patient,
Mhm.
staying technical, got his timing, and then just really went to work. And that takes him now to a 2 fight win streak. So BG, how impressed with you with
Mhm.
Wutikrai here, bro?
You're hella impressed, brother. Firstly, just going back to the comments that we had in our previous video. I hope you guys make money this week. I hope you guys made some money on this fight card. Send us the commission in. That's at 12.2%. So send the commission. They will give you guys our banking details. So Wutikrai, I am highly impressed with this kid, dude. Firstly, he's quite tall for flyweight, if I'm being honest here, right? Because he was significantly bigger than Uemwe. Not necessarily muscle bound, but just like his height discrepancy was quite huge. Uemwe conditioned. We know the Lithuanian fighters are conditioned really well. Came in a fight with a lot of fire. The only thing I didn't really like is the entry, right? The way he was entering the pocket. It was like lunging left straights and lunging to the head. All of that was just he was trying to get to the head. And I was saying on live stream that if you can maybe target the body and the legs first, he's got some very good power in his hands, right? But he didn't really kick. He didn't really throw any tips. He didn't really even set up that shots to the head with a nice hook to the body and then go up with a straight. You know what I mean? Like bring Whitaker's guard down because he's massive. He's tall. He's evading a lot of your strikes anyway. And yeah, I just didn't like the way he was entering the pocket there. And I think if he was a little bit more creative with that entry. He could have at least pulled the guard down, opened up a bit more of the targets for him, and he could have landed some more boxing combinations. Because Whittaker, once he realized that this is all that Oimo is going to throw at me is just punches, he was like, all right, I'm going to blast kicks at you, bro. And the blasting of
Mm,
the kicks was keeping Oimo's hands very active. So now he can't even throw any punches anymore because now he has to defend all these kicks the whole time it's coming at him. Ultimately setting up his demise because when he did enter recklessly, he got caught with a nice with a cut angle, threw a right elbow, dropped him. Once Umuri got up, he kind of clinched him into the position and just started throwing some heavy knees, ultimately just ending the fight in the first round by TKO. So great finishing sequence, good defensive ability from Mutikrai as well. I think also I have to give a lot of props to how he read the fight. Because a lot of fighters can get sucked into a brawl. If someone's coming at you with that amount of pressure that Umuri was putting on him and those lunging punches, you can get sucked into a brawl with someone like that because you can see, oh, he's throwing me wild exchanges. I'm gonna time you and then we're gonna slug it out, right? But Whittaker didn't. He was like he was cutting angles, which is really well, and that helped him set up his moves, set up his strikes, and yeah, dude, just a masterful performance. And I do think that we could have a potential, a wild card in this flyweight division. Like I said, he's
mm,
young. He's only 23 years old, and if he performs anything like that going forward, I expect him to really be a puzzle for the flyweight division. We got Nabila Nan, who's 6 foot plus in the bantamweight division. We got this kid now. I don't think he's 6 foot, if I'm being honest, but he's big. What's that? 5'8".
Mm.
And majority of the guys in the flyweight only reach like 5'6" max. So he's got an advantage there, and he's very skillful as well. So I was quite impressed with that performance.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned his age. They're 23 years old, and for someone at that age to stay so composed when you've got an absolute bull coming at you like that, it makes it even more impressive what we saw on Friday. So yeah, fair play to Wutikrai there. BG, any final thoughts on this one before we move?
Just very excited to see more of him, more of his fights going forward. I mean, if he fights another fight like this in his next, his next performance, we could potentially see this kid get fast tracked, bro. We could potentially see him getting fast tracked. You know what I'm saying? And there's a lot of flyweight killers at the moment. There's Tupanan brothers. There's Gonzalez. There's a lot of flyweight contenders that's looking for a fight here, and I think this boy is definitely going to be one to watch.
Fair play. And if you have any thoughts, ladies and gentlemen, drop us a comment in the comment section. You know where it is. Like and subscribe to Fighting with Friends. But we'll keep it moving into a catchweight bout. And here we saw Super Jane come up against Chama. Super Bond training champ. Cornered, of course, by Super Bond Chama. And this was a fantastic fight, BG. I mean, this was crazy back and forth. And yeah, I mean, we could see why this guy is the Super Bond Camp's training champ. Right? He was on fire at stages in this fight. I mean, Chama looking good in the opening exchanges. Super Jing turning it up towards the end of round one. Super Jing sitting Chama down halfway through the first round with the right straight. Bit of an eye poke, and then Chama knocks Super Jing down, and then Chama body shot knockdown. That was crazy. And then eventually leading to a left straight, but a spectacular finish. So yeah, Chama really setting the crowd alight with this one. So yeah, PG, what can you tell us here, bro?
Dude, this was the way this fight played out. You could make it as a contender for fight of the night just because of what happened. Both guys getting a drop, and also went to three rounds, and it was like a hellish kind of 3 rounds. If you think about it, you just described it very nicely. And how it took place. I got to give a lot of props to Super Jing. Firstly, he's the younger athlete that came into this fight, right? I think he's just turning 20 or something, 19 years old, and the composure on him to take on, because Chama was aggressive from the first round. Let's get honest here. He wasn't like living up as per round. He was going hard from the first round already.
Yeah.
And Super Jing, he stood his ground. He was composed. He was also cutting angles. The defense was there. He's got a very good jab on him, good body kick as well. And his boxing combinations are very good. And the way he defends when he's getting backed up is phenomenal to see. So I'm impressed with how experienced he looks, even though he's only 19 years old. But Chama, pretty powerful story from this guy, right? He retired from Muay Thai because he was taking quite a few losses. Superman was talking about it post-fight. And to bring him, he's like, no, come back. Just don't retire. Come back and fight. You're going to be fine. You're only 26 years old. And look at him now, dude. Look at the performance. Because when he did get dropped, what I really liked about Chama was he didn't look completely dazed. He was dropped, clinched his jaw, shook himself up, and he was like, all right. And he immediately looked at Super Jing and he's like, all right, now we're going to fucking fight, bro. You know, now we're going to go at each other. And that's what he did, because there was just forward pressure after forward pressure. I mean, that the first drop that he did was in the third round from Chama. The first one he landed was in the third round, and it was an exchange of the ropes where he threw a short uppercut. And that kind of just took the lights out of Super Jing, because I don't think he recovered really well after that. I literally rewatched it before we went on to this recording now, and he didn't really recover very well from that knockdown. He was cobwebs the whole time, and then Chama just kind of just the finishing sequence was there. You know what I mean? You could see, because that left straight he didn't have to set up that left straight for the last shot. He just walked forward, bang, and threw a left straight at him and dropped him. He didn't have to set it up even with a jab or something. He just threw it very straight. And got himself a fantastic performance. I think he got a bonus, if I'm not mistaken, as well. So big ups to that dude. Look, 141 pounds. So that's we're looking at close to featherweight, almost lightweight in one championship. So I don't know if he's going to be breaking into that top tier, because those guys are big, they're powerful. You know what I mean? We're talking about the categories of Vamparas. You know, your Masaki's them. Masaki, what's his name? Nico Carrillo, Shadow, Pampara, Superbon, Tawanchai. Like, these are guys that are a lot bigger than Chama, actually. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know if he can make that run, but he's a talent, and I think he can be
Mm.
a thorn. I just don't know if he can be the champion.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's difficult to argue with against him after a performance like that. I mean,
Mm, mm.
like you said, he definitely showed flaws, but I mean, the heart of the man to come back the way he did, and such a spectacular finish, bro. That left straight just set the crowd alight and really set the
Yeah.
tone for the rest of the event. So, yeah,
Mm.
I was very impressed with him. I thought he
Yeah, me too.
also he's quite a character. He was playing to the crowd when he was getting hit,
Yes.
like um,
Mm,
just
mm.
showing a bit of his character there. And yeah, he's an entertainer, and yeah, I'm hoping to see more from him in the future.
Yeah,
But yeah,
absolutely.
we'll see how far he can go. Time
Well,
will
what
tell.
they could do,
Mm,
what they should be doing next is maybe not giving him a catchweight opponent. A Friday fight
mm.
card, but then give him someone in either the featherweight or you give him someone that's in the bantamweight.
Yeah, that would be ideal. So yeah, let's see, Mr. Charles, you please make that one happen. Let's get the Chama training champ, Superbond training champ, a proper opponent in a good weight division here. And
Yeah.
then we can see what's what. But all right, BG, we'll then keep it moving. And here we go to Deng Kriang Krai, who defeated Yong Tong Tai by unanimous decision here. This was also another great back and forth. Deng Kriang
Yeah.
Krai, good elbows in the first round. Yong Tong Tai showing good defense. Deng Kriang Krai pushing the pace then in rounds 2 and 3, getting a
Mm.
knockdown in round 3. And then Yong Tong Tai, whose nickname is the classic cat with 9 lives, really started fighting like a cat with 9 lives in the last, I would say,
Yeah.
minute or so of the final round. He just started going for it, all
Yeah.
reckless abandonment, and yeah, it was quite a spectacle. But yeah, in the end, Deng Kriang Kai doing enough to get it done in the first. I would say rounds 2 and 3,
Mm,
rounds, yeah,
mm.
really, really pushing away in round 2. So yeah, BG from your side.
Absolutely, dude. Look, I would go actually that round two was a little bit more competitive. Even though I can see Denkri and Cry winning that first round, I think Yotong Tai was doing, like you just said, his defensive positions was really good in that first round. He didn't really take a lot of damage in that first round, and I thought he did really well, Yotong Tai, if I'm being honest. But then round two, Denkri and Cry really leveled up the pace and started landing some damaging blows. Like he was being very aggressive, very, very aggressive, walking Yotong Tai down, getting him to fight backwards most of that second round and majority of the third round as well. I mean, you said he got that knockdown. It was a beautiful knockdown as well. I did say Denkan Krai was going to win. I thought he was the more powerful puncher, and that was what was going to get him the job done. But I have to give props to Yotong Tai. I didn't realize that he was actually. I did think he was slick. I did say that he could have cleaner technique than Denkan Krai because Denkan Krai is the kind of he fights like Shadow Man. They car crash you. They just car
Mm,
crash you the whole time. They make it very ugly. And I thought that Yotong Tai is going to be a little bit more elusive and slicker and utilize that jab and be a little bit smarter, and you could kind of see that a little bit, but for me, it was a little bit too slow. He was a bit too slow to react, and he was allowing Dinklage to just overtake the fight and start pulling away and pulling away. And once you get a knockdown in a Muay Thai fight, dude, it's basically a 10-8. It's as good
mm,
as gone. You know what I mean? And that kind of forced Yotong Tai to get it back. And dude, you wouldn't even say that he was knocked down the way that he fought after that knockdown. You would think that he was the one who was winning the fight because at the end of that third round, like literally that last say 50% of that third round, it was all Yoktong Tai. He was the one that was walking down. He was the one that was being aggressive. Pretty much this close to getting a finishing blow. If you think about it, if he had to land any of those elbows that he was throwing, or any of those hard straights that he was throwing, it could have been a knocked or knocked down. But you have to give props to Denka and Kai to be able to evade a lot of that and actually survive the fight. And this was a bit of a dog fight if you think about it, because these guys were going. There was no moment where there was a bit of a lull, where they're just
yeah.
looking for size up, size up. No, these guys were going from that first ball to that last ball and put on a very good performance. Just a little bit gutted that there was no stoppage, but other than that, I think it didn't really need one, considering that how both the guys kind of laid it out there for all of us to see. And I'm keen to see both of them come back. But I do think Denkan Cry has been fighting a little bit longer in the one championship, and I expect him to get more sort of, I won't say privilege, but we'll probably see him a lot more in the Friday fights card, sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like you said, both guys leaving it out there, leaving nothing to chance, and just yeah, putting on another great show for everyone who was watching. But yeah, fantastic performances there, BG, and
Hmm.
another fantastic performance that I'm sure you are really keen to talk about. This was the highlight reel of the night, Atomweight Muay Thai. We
Oh
saw
yeah.
Bourneung against Chatai. And yeah, Bourneung here, 17 years old, making his one championship debut. And I don't think it could have gone any better for him on the night. Highlight real finish, right overhand, rocket knee, tomahawk elbow. Then
Yeah.
taking his time before throwing a front kick up the middle to the face and finishing the fight there, bro. It was absolutely crazy. 17 years old, take a bow, young man. And yeah, bro, I
Yeah.
mean, for him, I don't think he could have dreamt it going as well, to be honest with you. But yeah, what can you tell us about the young man here, VG?
Firstly, 350,000 baht, bro. In the young man's
There you
account.
go.
There we go. Bonus machine. I'm pretty sure you'll be a bonus machine the more we see him. And also, big props for him fighting his debut fight at atomweight and not at catchweight. We have to
Mm,
stress that because a lot of these guys that make their debuts at 1 Friday fights are fighting not a catchweight bone fights, right? This kid's getting thrown into a division immediately. That is relatively fresh, right? They're looking for a champion as well. That Nadaka Yoshinari is there. Song Chanoi. So it's a division full of good killers, but there was no champion for a while. There isn't still no champion. But now that they have these two athletes that are pretty much gonna fight for a title in Songchan Noi and Narako Yoshinari, means that every fight now in atomweight has a lot more stock to it, right? There's a lot more weight to the fight now because now there's a title you can go for. It hasn't been announced yet, but it's most likely going to be the case once we see Naraka Yoshinari take his first fight. So that means athletes like Bernwang can look forward to something like that, right? He's not just fighting for bonuses now. He can actually go and climb a division. There's a ranking that he can climb, that he can go and claim. And I think Chatai didn't even know what he was getting involved in here because the moment the fight started, Bernwang went straight for him. Aggressive. He didn't even like set anything up. He wasn't even like, oh, we're gonna get warmed up. He was going balls to the wall so fast that Chatai didn't even know that he was in a fight. He didn't even know that there was a fight happening. He was literally playing FIFA. That's what it looked like. He wasn't even in this fight. He looked like he was a shadow, and he was just a test dummy for this young lad. So that gives you a very good kind of a description of how the fight took out because it was that quick. It was first round, right? Yeah, first round knockout, and it's only a 3 minute fight, only 3 minute rounds, and this dude got the knockout within the first minute and 30 seconds of the fight. So big ups to Brandon Wang. He's very aggressive. Like you mentioned, Tamok elbows, flying knees. The youth is definitely there. You can see it. The boy fights like a Super Saiyan. And his character, he's got a very good character. The way he was dancing after the fight, the way he was hyping up the crowd. Yeah, showing the elbows. Nah, fun athlete. I'm gonna remember that gym's name, Sor Salachip. I'm gonna remember that name because that's the name of his gym. So let's see. Please, Chaudhry, give this boy some more fights. I want to see him fight at least 2 more times in 2025.
there you go. There you go. Yeah, so remember the name. Remember the name of the gym, ladies and gentlemen. And yeah, drop us a comment there. How impressed were you by the debut of Bernard? But all right, PG, anything else you
He
want to
stole the
say
show,
about the
bro.
young man?
I
Yeah,
would say he
yeah,
probably
nah,
stole the show for me. Even
definitely,
though we had
definitely.
some really high profile fighters on the fight card, I think this kid definitely stole the show for me. It was
Yeah,
super exciting to watch.
difficult to argue with that, bro. I mean, it was a fantastic, like I said, highlight reel, bro.
Yeah.
I mean, he couldn't have manifested that going any better, I don't think, bro. So yeah, yo, what a performance. And yeah, looking
Yeah.
forward to his next fight. But yeah, we can keep it moving into some bantamweight Muay Thai. We saw Alessio, your boy Alessio Malatesta, defeat Campite Wada by second round knockout. Yeah, bro, Campite Wada just too tough for his own good here, bro. Just
Mm.
taking so much punishment before eventually succumbing to this barrage of strikes that Malatesta was throwing at him. And yeah, I felt really gutted for Campite Wada because you can see a guy like that, he's not used to getting finished.
Yeah.
And when it happened, it was like it shattered the whole paradigm in his life. He was like, yo, what
Yeah.
happened here? Because he was just so deflated, bro, the way he
Yeah.
went down.
Yeah.
So I really felt for him. But yeah, fair play to Malatesta, bro. He was relentless. The pressure was there from the beginning.
Yeah.
And yeah, he got the result. Second round KO. But yeah, again, just Campiri Wada, too tough for his own good. PG, what can you tell us
Yeah,
here, bro?
dude. I remember your reaction for this fight. I mean, first of all, big ups to tuning into live, even though you had other um things to attend to that was a little bit more important at the time. So big ups for you too, because I remember your reaction. You were like, you were almost out of breath when you were watching it because you were like, what the fuck just happened, my bro? Firstly, Campiri Wada is 6 foot for this bantamweight division, so another tall athlete, relatively young, right? Only 20 years old. And when the fight started, he was blasting those kicks, which was the right thing to do. Usually, reach advantage. But when they got into boxing range and they needed to box, he looked a little bit uncomfortable there. You could see Malatesta was like, he was like, oh, now we're in my domain. And because when he started throwing those body shots, Campitiwada didn't like it. And what I would have loved to have seen from Campitiwada when they were close in those little void positions and they throw in those boxing combinations, sort of step to the left or step to the right and then throw an elbow. Just throw an elbow. Malatesta was there to get clipped through because Malatesta strikes were coming from a very wide sort of wind up, because he was a lot of weight on those shots and he was aiming for the body most of the time before he went to the head. And I think that the issue that Campitiwada was doing in that fight, which kind of led to his demise, was he was allowing Malatesta to put him back on the ropes. Now his back is on the ropes. He can't step to the left. He can't step to the right either. He's gonna have to now take a shot, maybe clinch up, then break up, and then maybe reset again. And what he was doing also, he was blasting a body kick whenever Malatesta would walk forward. Look, it worked in the first round. You could see Malatesta's rib cage. You could see how red he was around his torso area by taking those shots, catching him, and then throwing a right or left straight. I just wish that Campitiwada would introduce the elbows whenever Malatesta would come very, very close to him. Just throw an elbow into the void, bang, let him walk into it. He didn't do any of that. And it allowed Malatesta to really get aggressive because every time he did come forward, it looked like a bull just hunting him down. And Campitiwada was like, yo, look at the speed, look at the power, and look at the explosion from Malatesta that was coming forward. And there was probably at least about 20 unanswered punches that led to the knockdown. That led to the knockout because it was just like, bang, bang.
Sure.
They were just going, and I was like, "How is this boy not responding to it?" And you still said on stream, "Yo, big ups to him. He's still hanging in there and fighting back." But I personally thought, like, dude, just take the knee,
Just go down, bro. Yeah. Just go down, bro.
Get an 8 count, recover.
You could see, like, after about 10 unanswered, the shots really started to take damage. Like, you could see it on his face, bro. It was like, like really starting to feel it there, bro. And yeah, again, just too tough for his own good, bro. But fair play to him. Absolute warrior. Managing to stay in there for as long as he did. But yeah, Malatesta, bro. What can you say? You were talking about the power coming into the fight. You were hyping him up quite a bit. So yeah, I assume you were quite impressed there with the performance.
Yeah. I was a little bit apprehensive just because Campitiwada was a little bit of the unknown, right? Never seen him fight before. This was his debut, coming in at 6 foot plus. Alessio Malatesta is not the tallest bantamweight, if you're being real here, right? He's actually quite short for the division, considering other bantamweight athletes that are in the division, right? If you think about Lampiel and them, Malatesta is not the biggest guy. So to see him going there, I was like, how's he going to deal with reach? Because when he fought Abdallah Dayakaev, Dayakaev also had the reach advantage in that fight, and you could see him struggle. But Dayakaev is also a little bit of a different kind of animal to fight against. So I was like, oh, how's he going to deal with this reach? And he did really well. He first struggled with that body kicks, but I mean, he fought right through it, and he was putting on the pressure. He knew that if he closed the gap and entered that void, there's no room for him for Campitiwada to blast the kick anymore. He's going to have to now just use his boxing combinations where he came off second best. So, yeah, dude, Malatesta, great win coming back. He needed that because he was on a loss before this. And, yeah, I think patiently we're going to see him. We're going to see him, climb that ranks. We're going to see it happen. He's only 23 years old. So, look out, boys. Look out.
Nicely done, PG. And, yeah, if you have any thoughts, ladies and gentlemen, drop us a comment there. Is Malatesta going to be one to watch for the future? But we can keep it moving in BG, and we'll go to a catchweight bout. We saw Apiwat defeat Jacob Thompson by unanimous decision. And this was also another close fight. I thought fantastic dirty boxing by Thompson in the first round. But Apiwat came into the fight as the fight progressed. Yeah. I didn't watch this one into too much detail, so I'll give it straight to you. And you can tell us, was this the right decision? Because like I said, it was quite a close fight. So what right decision for you, and what did you make of the fight, PG?
Yes, sir. Fascinating, fun fight. Good debut for Jacob Thompson. I'm not going to say Jacob Smith. I said Jacob Smith all day on the stream all day, so I'm going to say Jacob Thompson now. And sorry about that. I wasn't trying to be on purpose about it. I really was just saying Jacob Smith organically. But anyway, on stream I was in Apiwat's probably going to win the fight. I said in the build up as well. While the fight was taking place. When the fight was happening, I thought the first round Jacob Thompson was doing really well. He was utilizing that reach, right? really good reach advantage, and he was utilizing it well in that first round. But Apiwat was there. When this was the significant thing in this fight for me, which ultimately led to Jacob Thompson not winning the fight. He had the reach advantage, right? He didn't really throw a lot of tips or even calf kicks. He was throwing a lot of 1-2s, 1-2, 1-2, 2-1, 2-1, 1-2, 1-2, 2, all to the head the whole time, and like putting his head down, and just going. And I was saying on stream, he needs to do something else because what's happening now is you're gonna give Apiwat one pattern to read, and that was all he was doing. And Apiwat was like, "Is this all you're gonna throw at me?" And then Apiwat realized, "Okay, if all you're gonna do, I'm just gonna step back, counter, throw in the punch, get in the clinch, throw in the elbow, upward elbow, downward elbow, step back, throw another counter," and that's exactly what he was doing the whole time. So he was allowing Jacob Thompson, sorry, to to walk him down, to walk him down, right? But this is why, and it's going to go into the fight that took place a little bit earlier in the card as well, because I'm going to bring it up when we talk about the Cesarani fight. When you're walking forward and you got the pressure, you're supposed to be winning the fight, right? But if your forward pressure isn't doing anything and the opponent is countering you significantly, landing more of the damaging shots and actually winning the fight, then it's like, is that forward pressure really something to sort of score in the correct way, right? Because Jacob Thompson, I was screaming for him to just throw a body shot. Just throw, when you're going forward, you've got Apiwat going like this and trying to dodge you 1-2, 1-2. Just go one to the body, bang, and then back to the head again. I guarantee he would have gotten a knockdown, or he would have landed something much harder on Apiwat. Because he didn't let Apiwat at all think about his body or his legs. He just had to dodge your left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, and then counter you. And that's why he ultimately lost the fight. And I think it was the correct decision because he wasn't effective with his forward pressure. He did it in the first round, and he made it a bit of a spectacle. It was back and not necessarily back and forth, but it was aggressive because of his pressure and because of how he had a lot of pace. He's got conditioning. This is Jacob now. He's got very good conditioning, but he was missing a lot of the time. And ultimately, you can't score someone that isn't really landing that significantly. Whereas the other guy in Apiwat, every time he did throw something, every time he did let it work, it landed with intentions. And at the end of the fight, Jacob Thompson had more damage on him. You could see he had more damage on his face. He was wearing it worse. And ultimately, you got to give it to Apiwat. I wouldn't have said unanimous. I would have maybe given it a little bit of a closer score than that because neither guy got a knockdown. Neither guy got rocked. It's just who landed more and who landed more cleaner. And Apiwat was the cleaner and more damaging strikes, and that's why they gave it to him.
Yeah, I mean, it's a dangerous game to go on. I mean, the metric of damage, bro, because we know if you're going to look at the damage that guys wear, we know the Thai Oaks don't bleed, bro. And Jacob Thompson was busted open. But now, fair play, I think, yeah, he was struggling, bro. And I mean, he also landed some decent shots in the first round. Like I said, he got into the clinch and he landed a good combination there that I think he did some good damage in the first round.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, I didn't see this fight into too much detail, so I could definitely take your word for it there, BG. Any final thoughts on this one before we move?
Yeah, dude. Look, Apiwat's 32 years old. So Jacob was taking on a very experienced fighter, right? And this is his debut. And I think there's something in Jacob. I don't know champion quality, but I think if he can just add more tools to his arsenal, in the combinations and not get so head hunting heavy. If he sets up some of those 1-2 stuff, because he's tall for 132 pounds, right? He's big for this division. So I think if he can just utilize that reach advantage in a better way, and not just put his head down and go, though, I think he has a better chance of winning fights if he can just be a little bit more creative and a little bit more patient. He will be a deadly fighter.
Fair play, fair play. Drop us a comment there, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any on these two fighters, and like and subscribe to Fighting with Friends. So okay, let's get to it now. The debut of Yuki Yoza, ladies and gentlemen, came and went. And yeah, I mean, he came up against a very, very game opponent in Albruz Osmanov. Yes. I mean, I didn't. The first, I remember I didn't really watch the fight that closely, and then I was just kind of looking over and glancing at it. I was like, I'm not sure if they made the right decision, but I have rewatched the fight, and I think we might have a new kicking machine in the division, bruh, because this man was throwing Yuki Yoza was throwing some. He was throwing some heat, bruh, and we could see one of his legs could only take so much, bruh.
He couldn't,
but yeah. Again, Osman, he did put up a great fight. He did make it a great spectacle. And yeah, bro, Yuki Yoza also showing that he's quite a character, bro. I saw at the end there he wasn't wearing any hand wraps. Crazy
He
mofo.
asked for that. Yeah, he's mad.
Yeah. So yeah, he's about that life, bro. And yeah,
Don't know
I
why.
mean, did he live up to the hype for you? Yeah, tell us everything, bro. Tell us what you saw
Mhm.
here. Tell us, did he live up to the hype? And tell us, is he gonna take that title from Mr. Haggerty in 2025?
Yeah, dude. Firstly, big ups to both fighters. Yo, they put on a spectacle here for a unanimous decision fight. I thought it was going. It was. There was never a moment in the fight where it was. Oh, they're waiting to throw a punch or it's a bit slow. It was also the war
Mm.
from the get go. And I'm gonna hold up on that kicking machine thing just yet. I do think Superlex still has has the moniker and he deserves it. Kyoza is definitely a fantastic kicker, but it's still yet to see if he takes on someone like Superlex. And we might see it, right? Because they are in the same division, so we might just see it. Um, but I want to start with Ubris Osmanov. I think the dude's got the heart, he's got the conditioning, and he's deadly, right? He can put anyone out. I just think that he fought against someone that's kind of seen a lot of that style already. I mean, Yuki Yoza is a champion in multiple divisions, so I think he kind of seen quite a few of the stuff. I just think the biggest takeaway for me for Ubris is he's conditioned. He's a gamer. He's got a good poker face. He fights through adversity because the damage that he was taking to his calves, to both calves, by the way, a lot of guys would have been like, I'm done, dude. My leg can't even stand anymore. And he was taking it like a champ. Even some of the tips as well. I was like, nah, Ubris is he's not going down here, bro. He's taking a lot of this punch. And he was going forward. He made Yuki Yoza look like he was exhausted after the end of the fight. Yuki looked like he had nothing left, which indicates to me a pace like that. I don't know if Yuki can go 5 rounds like that. You know what I mean? And Nagadidim can go 5 rounds easy with a pace
Mm.
like that. So yeah, let's see. I think Yuki's a little bit full for the bantamweight division. I don't know how he made the weight, but big ups to him. But in terms of the 3 round performance, I got what I expected and a little bit more from Yuki Yoza. Based on the footage I've watched in the past, and I thought, okay, let's see if he's going to be able to do this in the one championship. I think if he had given Yuki Yoza a different opponent, we would have probably seen like the superstar Yuki Yoza, Jin Kazama performance, ultimate knockout, something like that. But I think Ubris is the kind of fighter that would make it difficult for anybody, to be honest with you. And that's why we have to give more respect to the actual win because, yeah, it was a tough fight for both athletes. And I think Yuki just won the fight because he was doing what he does best, attack the carve, be very creative of when he's going to attack the carve and how he's going to do it. Because there was moments in the fight where the amount of times that Yuki attacked the carve was significantly as equivalent to a boxer that's very jab heavy. That's
Mm.
just he's basically they're throwing out the jab or they're throwing out a low kick in moments when it's not supposed to be one. In the moments when you're resetting, in the moments when you're coming out and going back. Yuki was throwing. There's moments where Yuki just walked forward like this. He just walked forward like this, and he was doing it purposefully to take a shot. But in that moment, he knows that if Alvarez is going to throw a shot, he's going to plant his feet right and to throw a shot, and that gives him opportunity now to attack the leg that's there. It's now vacant.
Mm.
So bang, bang, bang. There you go, double calf kick. And and I think that's what helped Yuki to win the fight. And also, Alvarez didn't really have a way around it. What he used to counter that was just be active, like switch a
Mhm.
stance, throw body kicks, throw spinning kicks to almost remove that target away from Yuki because he couldn't check it anymore. So you had to do something about it. So he was just okay,
Mm.
just get on your bike, be more active, keep lifting up the leg. Just don't give Yuki Yoza a target to hit anymore because I don't think if he had to stay more stationary, I think his legs would have been taken out of him completely. But yeah, good performance, good spectacle on both guys. I really want to see Obris fight more frequently because I'm a fan.
Mm.
And yeah, Yuki Yoza, dude, thank you for finally arriving and putting on such a wonderful performance. I do think though, going forward, that the one championship should definitely rethink those hand wraps thing. I'm not a fan of it. I find it a little bit cringy and strange. If I'm being honest, because everyone else has to follow the rules. Put on hand wraps, you know what I mean? He's only risking himself with his hands, but also it's a different kind of impact when someone punches you with the hand wraps and not hand wraps. You know what I mean? It's like it's an extra cushion to the glove. And now he doesn't have that. It's just pure knuckle at the end
Mm.
of that glove. So, yeah, I kind of find it a little bit cheatish, strange. I don't really like it. I don't really like it.
Yeah, I mean there should be consistency for everyone.
For
One
everybody.
one 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 rule should apply to everyone. But just a little bit off topic here, ladies and gentlemen. If you do search Albruz Osmanov versus Yuki Yoza and go to Google Images. Look who made it to the front page, boys.
Yes.
Congratulations to Fighting with
Yes.
Friends. So shout out to Google
There.
keeping us
I mean,
on the Google
we've
image
been, I guess,
page.
quite often actually. I'm not sure if you noticed, but if you type in Friday fights, you'll see a lot of our thumbnails pop up quite frequently on Google.
There we are again. Yeah, this is the first time I've seen it. So that's shout out
Oh,
to
okay.
Google and everyone who's clicked on our videos, getting us to the front page of Google Images. But yeah, just coming back to Yuki Yosa, yeah, your point there about him kind of waiting for Usmanov to go and then throw a leg kick. He was almost
Mm.
using the Usmanov's movement as prompts to throw that leg kick.
Yes.
So whenever
Yes.
Usmanov, especially when he would throw a roundhouse or a high kick,
Yes.
leaving that standing leg there, and every time Yuki Yosa would just attack it. And yeah, we started to see those leg kicks pay dividends. The man was falling off his feet. Usmanov towards I think like the end of round 2 and round 3, he
Yes.
started getting
Yeah.
knocked down with those leg kicks, and he did
Yes.
wear it well though. You can see he
Oh,
showed a good
conditioned.
poker face. Yeah, but yeah, a great performance by Yuki Yosa. The footage we saw was exactly what we saw in the ring, those leg kicks, the
Mm.
diversity of strikes, and always just finishing with a leg kick every time,
Mm.
And yeah, but yeah, again, Osmanov, fantastic performance as well, especially against such a highly
Yeah.
established opponent. So yeah, looking forward
Yeah.
to seeing both of these men in the future.
They might fight
PG,
again.
immediate rematch.
No. I mean, like in the future, because
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yuki
yeah,
was just
yeah.
27 years old and Obrus is 23. And if they both keep performing like that, bro, I really would see them fighting again in the future.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Mm.
PG, final words on this one, and then we'll keep it moving to the other debutant.
Okay. Final words, keep it short and sweet. Yuki was just calling out for all the champions. He wants Superlik, he wants Haggerty, he wants Nabil. I think give him someone like Rui or pick the Nong first. Maybe even both of them back to back if he beats either one. Like give him the next one next, and then and only then you can give him Jonathan Haggerty. I don't think you can give him a title fight after that fight. I think he needs to fight a former champion first, and I think Petanong would be a fantastic fight for him.
Nicely done, BG. And then we will keep it moving. And I know this is one you really want to talk about. It was the debut of Kaito Ono. He came up against Mohamed Sia Serrani. And yeah, I mean, again, very close fight here. Sia Serrani, I did give round 1 to Sia Serrani. And towards the middle of round 2, I think both guys, their bodies were starting to wear damage. It was Sia Serrani's kind of solar plexus and Kaito's arm and deltoid.
Yeah.
So they were both wearing body damage. I would argue, well, I could see you giving Kaito round 3. So I think it really came down to round 2 for this fight, which was also very close. How did you see this one, BG? Did you think it was the right decision, and what did you make of the fight and the debut of Kaito Ono?
Firstly, the fight was nice, right? I think Mohamed Cisani fought a good fight. Kaito looked a little bit of like how do you put this? Like debut jitters, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah,
Just like Misaki Nairi when he first came to One Championship, his first 2 fights, it looked like what is this brother doing here? And now he's a champion. You're like, what's going on? You know what I mean? So taking out Tawan Chai, by the way. So in this fight, I did think Mohamed Cisani did really well in the first round. I would argue that he won the first round. There's no actually. I can't really make an argument for Kaito winning the first round. He didn't really do enough for me to say, okay, you can actually steal it. There's a lot of measuring, but Rani was going first every time, and he was landing, and he was countering also well, but he was getting backed up, but he was landing. Now, this is where it gets a bit interesting for me, and this is why I would say maybe Kaito won. Even though I thought Kaito looked a bit slow and strange, in the second round, you could see some of the body work was starting to take an effect on Muhammad, because Muhammad didn't really walk forward at all in that second round. He didn't go forward. Everything that he was doing, he even switched his stance and went straight back into southpaw because he was getting calf kicked in the when he was in orthodox. Went into southpaw, fighting back foot. And I've seen a lot of fights with Mohamed Sadani. When he goes into southpaw, he's pure counter striking. It's only when he's in orthodox that he's going forward and he's doing some combinations and he's piecing you up. But when he goes to southpaw, he's basically fighting defensive now. He's going to counter punch you, counter strike you. That's his style. That's how he goes. And he was trying to utilize that game plan a lot. But I felt that it wasn't enough. Just like what's his name? Jacob Thompson, right? Same thing. If you're gonna use the if you're gonna in that fight, Apiwat was the one on the back foot, but Apiwat was clean with his counter striking. He was doing damaging shots and he was being more effective with his counter striking going backwards. He even forced Jacob Thompson to fight differently. In this fight, when Kaito was walking Muhammad Cesarani down, which is predominantly of round 2 and round 3, Cesarani didn't do anything with his counter striking that forced Kaito to re-strategize how he's going to enter, get him to fight counter. He didn't even back Kaito up. You know what I mean? Kaito still kept on walking him down. And there was moments where Kaito was making Cesarani freeze and then froze, boom, right straight to the body. There's a moment where he even did a pump fake and then made Cesarani swing and then he stepped back, 1-2 to the head. So I was like, how are you not scoring this for Kaito, dude? He's got the full momentum, he's got the pressure, he's landing more punches. Yes, Cesarani did also land, but a lot of his punches that he was landing or kicks he was landing was coming out of the defensive position back on the ropes. A lot of those body kicks was taken on the arm, and that, like you said, led to you could see the damage on Kaito's right arm. But like in terms of scoring the fight, I have issues or difficulty scoring the fight for someone that's predominantly on the back foot for most of that fight, and all his punches, he didn't rock Kaito once. He didn't drop him. There was nothing that was making Kaito rethink about the fight. He was just like, I'm just gonna keep walking you down, Brian, making you miss, making you faint, and then land when I need to land. And he won the third round and the second round, in my opinion. And Cesarani won the first round. But that being said, I'm not mad at the result. I am a fan of Muhammad Cesarani as well. And at 23 years old, making a call to climb the ranks for the featherweight division. He beats it to Chai already. He's got the talent, dude. He's got the skill set. He's got a good game plan coming out of Medisa. He's a good fighter. I just think that the decision was incorrect on the night. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it comes down to that second round, and that second round was quite close for me. Honestly, I can see it going either way, bruh. So any decision that was made there, I can justify it. Yeah, it's one of those where it's like, you tell me Kaito Ono one, I say yeah, nah, it's fine. You tell me Cesarani one, yeah, fine. You tell me it's a draw, even I can get back. I can see it, man. I can see where you're coming from with it.
Yes.
So it's a tough job being a judge.
Not easy.
You can let us know your thoughts in the comments, whether it was the right decision of the night and what you made of the fight. But yeah, a tough job to be a judge. That's about all I'll say on the matter. Because yeah, I'm
will
really
say this.
kind of solidly on the fence here, PG.
Yeah, no, sorry to interrupt you, brother. The last thing I'll say on Kaito, two things. One, the current interim champion in this division in kickboxing lost 2 fights in the beginning of his career in one championship and took out one of the best pound for pound strikers in one championship in Tawan Chai. And then secondly, if this is what Kaito is like right now, he's only 27 years old. I think he can be a little bit better. But if this is the Kaito that would have fought against Marat Grigorian, I think Marat Grigorian would have slept him, would have knocked him out probably in the first round. So he needs to level up. He needs to get up to another level. He was gonna want to consider fighting for a title in this organization.
Fair play, BG. Fair play. All right, BG. Then we did have 2 MMA bouts, which opened up the night for us. So I'll give it to you to take us, tell us a little bit about those fights, please.
Yo, dude, this fight was so quick. It had my heart racing. I didn't even know how to relax after it. It was a good curtain raiser for the fight card. I'll start with one between Marvin Kurante versus Turepchi Dongak. That was a killer fight. Very high pace. I don't know what's up with the MMA guys in one championship as to why they fight this intensely and so fast. I mean, it's a 5-round minute fights, bro. You need to be a little bit more patient. And these guys go so fast. You ask yourself how they're gonna make it out of the first round. Marvin is a fantastic talent. 22 years old. He's got good boxing, good wrestling, but I just felt like he was a little bit what's the word? He was panic wrestling in this fight. You could see once. I remember it was in the first 20 seconds or so in the fight, Turepchi landed a fantastic left hook, and Marvin's hands up and hit him in the face, and you could see he was like. Then he immediately went for a takedown, and he was just constantly shooting, even though you got reversed, he was just constantly shooting, and I felt like it didn't look like he was setting up any of those takedowns. It looked like he was just trying to be avoiding any of those power punches. And Turepchi was just taking his time. You could see he was just very patient, threw shots when he needed to throw shots. And ultimately, when he got Marvin back up in that back of the ropes, he let those hands go, and then it led to the TKO finish. And Turepchi looks good. He looks composed. He looks like he's going to be a fantastic fighter for that strawweight division where we have Pokang, Joshua Pasio, Mansour. I think Torepchi can be something in there. He needs to be a little bit more leveled up, be a little bit more patient, set up that wrestling exchanges. He's got good boxing, he's got good speed, got good body kicks. I think he needs to set up a lot of those moves before he becomes a little bit more of a deadly opponent. But he's young, so I can see the future looking bright for him. But to Torepchi, I think they must give him someone a little bit higher ranked. That was strawweight, right? So if you look at that strawweight division at the moment, Sanjo is ranked number 5, and Kaito Yamakita. There's also Hiroba that's in this division. They can give him Hiroba as well as his next opponent. I'd love to see something like that. That would be a fantastic matchup. But yeah, big win. I don't know if he got the bonus, but that was a big win for him. Jean-Claude Saklak taking on Shahzada Atef. That was the opening bout. Both of us watched this together. And dude, what a fucking fight. Jean-Claude got fantastic boxing power. He's got a lot of power in those flyweight hands, eh? Good scrambles as well. Very good wrestling. I just think that the submission came from a position where I think Jean-Claude just didn't expect it. I didn't even expect it to happen. I didn't even see the transition until I watched it properly in slow motion. Because up until that point, it was a very even matched fight. I do think Shahzada's takedowns and control time kind of won him the fight. But I mean, he got dropped twice. Jean-Claude got dropped twice. They were going back and forth. Jean-Claude looks good. He looks good. I just think that it was an unfortunate submission. I just think that he would. I think 9 times out of 10, you probably would have gotten submitted anyway because the submission came in a move and in a time where it was in the transition of a grappling where Shahzada was going from from back control, going over the top of Jean-Claude and switching up into an armbar. Like come on, that's high level jiu-jitsu, bro. So yeah, good debut for Shahzada and fun fight. He's very, very tall for flyweight MMA. So yeah, I think at the moment the flyweight MMA division is starting to look really, really fun going forward for one championship.
Give thanks, BG, and that wraps up One Friday Fights 109 very nicely for us. So as always, we're gonna go to some final thoughts and a post-fight rating for the card, please. So
yeah. Final thoughts. I think the card played up to its hype. There was one fight that got removed. I just can't remember now who it was, but that doesn't matter anymore. I think the fight card in overall was really amazing. We had a couple of unanimous decisions, but those unanimous decision fights were really, really entertaining. A bunch of finishes, bunch of bonuses. 17-year-olds looking fantastic. Yeah, for me the card really lived up to its hype. Other than the Kaito Uno debut, I think it was a little bit sluggish there. So my rating before the fight card, what did I have it at 7.5 or something like that?
7.5.
Yeah, I'm gonna take it up to a 9. I thought it was really, really phenomenal in terms of all the fights in total. None of it really was boring, and it made for a really, really good live stream. So yeah, well done. One championship for one 109 card.
Yeah, agreed. I started at an 8, and I'm also gonna push it up to a 9. Again, being a Friday Fights card, this was pay-per-view worthy stuff. Not only some of the fighters who were on the card, but also some of the performances, especially from Bernie Wang. Shout out to him, really putting himself on the map here at Friday with Friends. We're gonna definitely be keeping an eye out for him. So yeah, fair play to One Championship once again. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share the video, watch the podcast every day. Joe Rogan, the guy, Brother Babu, Jedi Knight. All of us here at Fighting with Friends. Have a blessed Sunday, everybody. We'll be back with more content next week. Stay safe, stay blessed. See you soon. Bye, everyone.